And this is a short video looking at the coelacanth.
The dead coming back to life sounds scary, but for scientists it can be a wonderful opportunity. Of course, we're not talking about zombies. Rather, this particular opportunity came in the unlikely form of a large, slow-moving fish called the coelacanth. This oddity dates back 360 million years and was believed to have died out during the same mass extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. To biologists and paleontologists, this creature was a very old and fascinating, but entirely extinct fish, forever fossilized. That is, until 1938, when Marjorie Courtenay Latimer, a curator at a South African museum, came across a prehistoric-looking, gleaming blue fish hauled up at the nearby docks. She had a hunch that the strange 1.5-meter-long specimen was important, but couldn't preserve it in time to be studied and had it taxidermied. When she finally was able to reach J.L.B. Smith, a local fish expert, he was able to confirm at first sight that the creature was indeed a coelacanth. But it was another 14 years before a live specimen was found in the Comoros Islands, allowing scientists to closely study a creature that had barely evolved in 300 million years. A living fossil. Decades later, a second species was found near Indonesia. The survival of creatures thought extinct for so long proved to be one of the biggest discoveries of the century. But the fact that the coelacanth came back from the dead isn't all that makes this fish so astounding. Even more intriguing is the fact that genetically and morphologically, the coelacanth has more in common with four-limbed vertebrates than almost any other fish, and its smaller genome is ideal for study. This makes the coelacanth a powerful link between aquatic and land vertebrates, a living record of their transition from water to land millions of years ago. The secret to this transition is in the fins. While the majority of ocean fish fall into the category of ray-finned fishes, coelacanths are part of a much smaller, evolutionarily distinct group with thicker fins, known as lobe-finned fish. 6 of the coelacanth's fins contain bones organized much like our limbs, with one bone connecting the fin to the body, another 2 connecting the bone to the tip of the fin, and several small finger-like bones at the tip. Not only are those fins structured in pairs to move in a synchronized way, the coelacanth even shares the same genetic sequence that promotes limb development in land vertebrates. So although the coelacanth itself isn't a landwalker, its fins do resemble those of its close relatives, who first hauled their bodies onto land with the help of these sturdy, flexible appendages, acting as an evolutionary bridge to the landlubbers that followed. So that's how this prehistoric fish helps explain the evolutionary movement of vertebrates from water to land. Over millions of years, that transition led to the spread of all four-limbed animals, called tetrapods, like amphibians, birds, and even the mammals that are our ancestors. There's even another powerful clue, in that unlike most fish, coelacanths don't lay eggs, instead giving birth to live young pups, just like mammals. And this prehistoric fish will continue to provide us with fascinating information about the migration of vertebrates out of the ocean over 300 million years ago, a journey that ultimately drove our own evolution, survival, and existence. Today, the coelacanth remains a symbol of the wondrous mysteries that remain to be uncovered by science. With so much left to learn about this fish, the ocean depths, and evolution itself, who knows what other well-kept secrets our future discoveries may bring to life?
Alright, so coelacanth, the extant example of sarcopterygians, lobe-finned fish. Alright, so we're going to talk about locomotion, how do fish in general move around. To beat the resistance that water provides, fish have developed some interesting mechanisms to move. So they're moving around in a different environment than we are, so their mechanism for movement is different. They use fins to push against the water. So this is kind of a direct form of movement. It's kind of like the rudder on a boat can push. Their muscular body wall that propels them forward is kind of in a zigzag pattern, like that little image at the bottom of the slide. And if you've ever eaten fish, when it flakes away, you see how the muscle, the meat that you eat, kind of breaks apart in these weird zigzag patterns. That's because that's how the muscles are attached, which gives them a lot of power to help them zigzag back and forth through the water. So the body of the fish pushes side to side. The physics of this is described a little bit like this. So the goal is to have the fish move forward, head direction, anterior end, moving into the environment. So what happens is the body moves side to side. They wriggle. If you've ever tried to pick up a fish when you go fishing or catch one in the water, they will wriggle and try to get away. Well, they do the same thing to move through the water. They're pushing to this side. And that is creating a force to the side. A component of that is normal force, which is perpendicular to the surface of the body. If you took physics class with me, we've talked about normal force a lot. And that component subtracts from this, and it gives it a little bit of a push forward and a little bit of a push to the side. Then they push with the other direction with the back end of their body, which has a normal force pushing this way, a sideward force, and it gives them a net forward thrust. So even though they're going back and forth like this, the sidewards components, the right and left components, cancel out, and they're left with only thrust pushing them forward in the water. Here's an example of a fish moving around, a little bit like a tetrapod.
This is a fish called a bashir. Bashirs are found in Africa, and like all fish, they live in water. That is, until they met researcher Emily Standen, who was working at McGill University in Canada. Standen thought that she would try raising bashir on land. Why, you ask? To see if it helps them walk. It isn't quite as mad as it sounds. Let's go back a step. Bashirs, unusually among fish, actually have lungs as well as gills, so they can breathe air. But having lungs doesn't mean you can walk, as demonstrated by this lung fish's failed attempts at perambulation. But there are fish that do take tentative steps onto land. Arguably, the masters of fishy walking are these, mudskippers. Bashirs too can make flappy forays over land, but they walk in a very different way. In fact, scientists think they walk like the ancestors of all tetrapods might have walked, fishopods if you will. Studying how they react to a terrestrial environment could help us understand how the very first fishy footsteps were taken on land. Standen's bashirs grew up in a decidedly damp but totally terrestrial environment. She and her team set up some high-speed cameras, placed the bashirs on a stage and let them go. They compared their walking abilities with those of bashirs raised more traditionally, in water. And they saw some differences, subtle but distinct. The landlubbers lifted their heads higher, planted their fins more efficiently, and slipped less often than their aquatic associates. This suggests that bashirs have the ability to modify their behavior in response to their environment, a concept called plasticity. This is the first time that plasticity has been shown to be a potential facilitator of such a major evolutionary step as our ancestors crawling out of the seas and onto land. But it doesn't stop there. When Standen examined the skeletons of her land-living bashirs, she found that their muscles and bones had changed as they adapted to walking. It appears that the bashir's anatomy is as plastic as their behavior. These changes looked strikingly similar to the kinds of changes scientists see in the fossil record as ancient species started making the transition to land. It might not look elegant, but don't be deceived. After all, one small flappy step of our fishy ancestors may have led to the giant leaps of mankind.
Alright, so a good view of the movement of fish. So we're going to move away from movement now and look a little bit at nutrition and digestion. how do fish get their food? Agnathans, the jawless fish, are often parasites. Some of them have gill rakers or modified gills that strain food particles out from the water. Most modern fish, however, are predators. They go out and actively consume other organisms. So agnathans, jawless fish, you've got an example here of a lamprey, and you can see all those nice teeth around the mouth. That is not a jawed mouth of the lamprey. And you can see another poor fish here suffering from a couple of lamprey attached to it. This one has found its way into its operculum. So teeth. Let's talk a little bit about teeth, because that's an important part of eating. Our best understanding of how teeth came to be in fish and in all subsequent tetrapods is that scales that were on the outer part of the skin that get shed over time are modified around the mouth to give some sort of cutting edge, tearing edge, or biting edge that allows them to get into their food. And part of the evidence for this is how the teeth develop. The teeth develop in waves that grow up out of the skin, new developing teeth, and the teeth that are getting worn out will get popped off and shed. Again, this is why in sharks, the one fossil you're likely to find, most likely to find if you're walking along the beach, is the teeth of the shark. Those get popped off all the time as they get used. A little bit less likely to find the jaw, because that's the next hardest part, but the shark has to die for you to find that. But we think teeth are modified scales. Now this is to show you goblin shark. This is another one of the videos that I've included in my notes because I had a student request to see how the goblin shark feeds. Spoiler alert, the picture there kind of gives some of this away.
Night falls, and something surprising happens. The shark has bitten into the sleeve of the diver's wetsuit. Its mouth protrudes to create the typical goblin shark shape. It happened suddenly when the shark turned to avoid the camera and ran into the diver's arm. The teeth are sunk deep into the sleeve of the wetsuit, trapping the shark. Finally, the shark frees itself. His mouth reverts to its original shape.
Alright, so goblin shark, and some good views of teeth in that shark. Alright, we'll pick up next time looking at circulation and gas exchange.